Welcome back to Puree Your Way, helping busy parents cook easy and nutritious meals for the first year of their baby's life. I'm your host, Victoria, and today we're going to make different purees for each stage of solid baby foods using an immersion blender. Pureed foods are recommended for your baby's transition from breast milk or formula to solid foods as their teeth grow in and they develop their eating skills. Early feeding habits can establish long-term healthy eating patterns, and a varied diet can lessen your baby's chances of becoming a picky eater. Stage 1 occurs between the age of 4 and 6 months. These foods contain 1 or 2 ingredients and are very thin in consistency, similar to the breast milk or formula that they're already used to. Today's stage 1 recipe will be a simple pea puree. Stage 2 starts when babies display more developed oral skills and lasts till they're about 8 months old. This is where you start to see more interesting texture and flavor combinations with thicker consistencies. Today's stage 2 recipe will be a butternut squash, banana, and blueberry puree. Finally, stage 3 starts when babies show a desire to feed themselves by developing the ability to pick up finger foods, which is a sign of fine motor skills. Our stage 3 recipe will be a chunky broccoli and carrot puree. Before we get into it, let me tell you why using an immersion blender is the most efficient when making homemade baby food. All of the recipes I'll be showing you today are made on a stovetop, so it's much easier to blend directly in the pot as opposed to transferring it to a traditional blender. This also makes it easier to make bigger batches of your baby's favorite combinations and discover your own as you get to know their preferences. I'm sure you've noticed the cost of store-bought baby foods start to add up along the solid food journey. All of the produce used in today's recipes can either be fresh or frozen. Frozen produce is usually significantly less expensive and can help to reduce food waste without compensating for quality. It can also help save time by eliminating the need to cut up the ingredients. So, without further ado, here are the timestamps for each stage. You can skip to the recipe that corresponds best with your baby's food skills. Let's begin with our stage 1 recipe, the simple pea puree. Peas are the perfect vegetable to start your baby's food journey because they're mild in flavor yet packed with nutrients that are essential to your baby's development. Peas are also very popular in stage 1 because allergies are quite rare. For this recipe, all you need is a 500-gram bag of frozen peas, your stove, a pot, a strainer, and your immersion blender. After thoroughly washing your hands with antibacterial soap, bring about 4 cups of water to a boil. From there, add the entire bag of frozen peas to the pot and let them boil for about 5 minutes. While waiting, set up your immersion blender near the stovetop. Be mindful of keeping electrical wires away from the heat. Strain the peas using oven mitts to protect your hands. Once strained, place them back in the pot and put the pot back on the stove. Once you're set up, start by using the slowest blending speed and work your way up in 10-second intervals and stir as needed. You can add water to the mixture if you aren't getting a smooth consistency, but be sure to keep the blender submerged to avoid hot splatter. As you can see, the puree is quite smooth with little to no chunks. Once it's cooled down, feel free to portion the mixture out into single serving sizes and store in the fridge until mealtime. Next is our stage 2 recipe, butternut squash, blueberry, and banana puree. Babies tend to prefer sweeter flavors, and this recipe has a subtle sweetness to it that your baby is sure to love. These 3 ingredients are all fantastic sources of vitamin C, which actually helps your baby's body better absorb iron from food sources. Using bananas in stage 2 foods is highly recommended because they're soft enough for your baby to experiment with chewing, so getting them used to the flavor early on is always a good idea. You'll need 2 cups of chopped butternut squash, 1 cup of blueberries, and 1 whole banana. For equipment, you'll only need a pot, a strainer, and an immersion blender. After thoroughly washing your hands with antibacterial soap, bring about 4 cups of water to a boil. Add the butternut squash to the boiling water. While waiting, set up your immersion blender near the stovetop. Be mindful of keeping electrical wires away from the heat. You'll know you're ready to strain the squash and start blending when you can easily poke through the squash with a fork. Strain the squash using oven mitts to protect your hands. Once strained, place back on the stovetop and add the blueberries and the banana. Start blending using the slowest speed and work your way up as needed. Blend until the mixture has very minimal chunks. You don't want it to be as smooth as water, but you just want to avoid any chunks that would require more chewing than your baby can handle. I'd recommend blending in 10-second intervals so you can adjust the blending speed and stir as needed. Be sure to keep the blender submerged to avoid hot splatter. Once it's cooled down, feel free to portion the mixture out into single serving sizes and store in the fridge until mealtime. Finally, we have our stage 3 recipe, the chunky broccoli and carrot puree. These vegetables are great sources of vitamin B6, which is essential for growth and development. Did you know that carrots come in a variety of different colors, all of which have different nutrients in them? Today we'll be using the orange baby carrots that you're used to seeing in stores. But if you're ever feeling adventurous, try red carrots. These contain lycopene, which is fantastic for heart health. You'll need 1 cup of frozen broccoli, 1 cup of baby carrots, your immersion blender, a pot, and your stovetop. After thoroughly washing your hands with antibacterial soap, bring about 4 cups of water to a boil. Then add the carrots and the broccoli to the boiling water. While waiting, set up your immersion blender near the stovetop. Be mindful of keeping electrical wires away from the heat. You'll know you're ready to strain and blend when you can easily poke through the carrot with a fork. Using an oven mitt to protect your hands, strain the vegetables, then return them back to the stovetop. Start blending by using the slowest speed and work your way up as needed. I'd recommend blending in 10-second intervals so you can adjust the blending speed and stir as needed. Blend until the mixture has bite-sized chunks, and be sure to keep the blender submerged to avoid hot splatter. Once you're satisfied with the chunkiness of the puree, feel free to portion the mixture out into single serving sizes and store in the fridge until mealtime. And there you have it. Not only can homemade baby food cut down on costs, but it can also help you immerse yourself in your baby's food journey. I hope that this video has inspired you to grab your immersion blender and puree your way. Thanks for watching. See you next time.